What's going on, man?
Good morning.
Nice to see you.
Yeah, good to see you too.
So you kind of it almost seems like with this new album title, you're kind of writing about what we're used to in Kansas City all the time, which is tornadoes.
Yeah, I'm horrified of them. I've never actually seen one before, so maybe you could tell me what that's like.
Listen, I've been waiting my whole life. So I will tell you one thing. Probably one of the earliest formations of fear in my head was the elementary school that we were at. There was alarms that went off, and we went down to the basement. The next day, it hit our school. And when we
Oh
went out on
man.
the playground, you could see there was a rumor that the kids were spreading. You could see where the tornado started, and you could actually go out in the middle of the soccer field and you saw this little hole in the dirt where the actual funnel began, and it was wild.
Oh man. Yeah, that's horrifying.
Yeah, and then other time that I had in my life, I'm so used to tornado sirens going off that you don't usually take it that seriously. You just hear them so much. But this was
Hmm.
in the middle of the day, and a tornado hit one of the colleges. It's called William Jewell College. It's a suburb of Liberty. And at one point, a microburst came through, and we were in the basement. We were closing the windows, and after we thought it was done, we went upstairs and we could hear what we thought was a train. And the actual tornado, from our vantage point, we couldn't see it, was actually going through the college and hitting everything. And you could hear it. And it sounds like a train. It's weird.
Mm.
So, anyway, I've had a little bit of a brush with it, but I really love the album. I've already played it on the show, and
Thank you.
we've caught up before. It's great to catch back up with you. So, thank you for taking a minute out.
Yeah, of course.
So, how did the album title come up, and what were the artistic forces that went into this project?
Um, well, for me, um, I it was a literal thing that happened. My partner's sister lives in New Orleans, and there was a tornado that hit New Orleans actually last year,
Wow.
around like April, I think, or something like that. And we were kind of watching the news and following the path of that tornado as it went through the city, and hoping that it wasn't gonna hit her place, which it didn't, thankfully. But it was kind of like evoking that feeling of like this like ominous like force, you know, coming in and causing destruction. And for me, I guess it's kind of like a parallel to, I guess, how I feel a lot like every day going through life currently in the world. So it's just kind of this feeling of like nothing is really grounded, and like basically at any moment, you know, everything that we're used to can kind of like fall apart, I guess. So, yeah.
And I guess that's a part of it too. I've gotten to a point where I get fatigued about talking about COVID and bringing it up to musicians, but it was such a
Mm,
magnanimous moment. I mean, I remember doing more interviews than I ever did before, and
mm,
hearing how everybody's calendar just evaporated, and how,
right.
you know, people were leaving big cities because they
Hmm.
couldn't afford it and all of that. So at the end of the day, how much of just what you said, living through COVID, informed the artistic direction of this? And how did you kind of get through that time period?
I think for me, it was like almost like the opposite. It was like I during COVID, I made an album that was remote recorded, so there was nobody in the same room playing together. And this record was, all together in one room with people that I'm very comfortable with playing with. Sorry, my little kitten is um, bothering me over here right
Uh,
now.
I'm telling you, I get cats riled up. I'm a cat guy. So when I start doing it, it
Yeah.
just, they hear the voice. They're like, wait, who's that dude?
Um, Yeah, but so for me, it was like a celebration of being back together and playing in the room together, and we recorded it at this club in LA that opened right before the pandemic called Sam First, which
Yeah.
has kind of become what like the Blue Whale Jazz Club was for the LA scene here,
Yeah.
as far as the booking and the quality of the backline and the way they treat the musicians and all that. So I like rented out the club during the day. I had performed a lot there that year, and I decided to do it in that room because I felt comfortable on the piano and in that room. And I thought that would be better than going into some studio. And, every as a piano player, every time you sit down, you meet a new instrument. I'm going to play at a club tonight, and it'll be a different piano than I played yesterday or whatever, or my one at home. So Yeah.
The one thing too, I think and it's not something that is necessary, but there's musicians that will pull in the modern times, politically
Mm.
speaking, and just culturally speaking. And
Mm-hmm.
one of your tunes is Woe V Shade. And I love it because we are living in a very weird, unique time where something that was as long-standing as that rule has been
Right.
overturned. All of us feel the fear of what's going on with
Right.
policies that are affecting our lives. So, what's your philosophy on putting yourself out there to talk about what is going on in this world and how it's affecting us?
Yeah, I mean, I definitely like named it that because I wrote it that day and it was directly influenced by like what I was feeling in that moment in the same way I think as Tornado Watch. Like, um, so I wouldn't say that like I want everything to be super like focused on the political element because I do appreciate the fact that like a lot of people listen to music as their escape from thinking about all the stuff that we're dealing with all the time.
Yeah.
And that's how I listen to music too, honestly. Um, so, I want there to be elements of that because I also think it's important. I'm making music now, and I think if we don't connect it to like what's happening right now with us, then it might as well be classical music, you know?
Yeah.
Like just today, I was like reading and like going through this whole thing. I don't know if you've been on Facebook recently, but it's like every other image is like an AI generated image. They're creating these and they attract like thousands of bots leaving comments on it. And they use that to like figure out who they can target for scams because the people that comment on these images are likely to fall for these scams. So it's just like this kind of stuff, like that's like what we're going through right now, that's like our current problems that we're dealing with. And so I think also we run the risk of the music being taken over by that kind of stuff. I know musicians in town who have already recorded on completely AI composed songs for producers in Nashville. So, it's already happening to our industry. So,
There was a friend of mine yesterday that was playing me a tune. He has an app that is AI music generated, and he said he wanted like caveman music about
mhm,
burnt popcorn coming out of a microwave, and it was a Frank Sinatra sounding thing with kind of this jazz thing. And
yeah,
it's like, oh my God, dude, what are we doing? It's like
yeah.
I understand kiosks at Walmart and it gets full and you want to check yourself out, but we can't do that to art, man. Like we can't replace this.
Yeah. I mean, I guess we'll see how good it gets. I don't know. And unfortunately, I think we just I don't know if we're relying on people to regulate it or what we want people to do for us. I don't know.
Yeah.
But
It's wild. So
yeah.
at the end of the day, what are you hoping the listener gets from this album?
Um, well, I hope they dig the music. I definitely tried to put in like a lot of the music that I love into it, and um, it's the vibe playing with those musicians. They're people I'm really comfortable with, especially the bass player and drummer and I have played a lot together. And the two horn players and I met at a music camp when we were 15, so that's like 13 years ago now. So there's like a long history there. I don't know. I hope, yeah, I like music that excites me. I like music that has surprise, that's harmonically adventurous. That's one thing that I'm really interested in. So I try to put that in the music.
So the one thing about being a journalist and talking to musicians after this is that you're already moving on to the next thing. This is
Mhm.
already in the rearview mirror. Not that you're
Right.
not tied to it, it's of the moment, but you're moving on to the next thing. So I'm curious, what's coming up for you as far as live shows, promoting it, anything else in the works? What's going on in your world?
Yeah. Well, I'm playing tonight. I'm playing tomorrow. I'm playing at the Grape in Ventura, which is a club out there. But these aren't my shows. I'm a sideman. The group I'm playing with on Thursday is a fusion big band where I play like a lot of synthesizers and there's like tuba and French horns, and the guy who writes music is nuts and writes really hard music for us to learn in a short period of time, and it's really fun. That's a project called Sicknarf. But as far as personal projects, I did kind of a tribute project to the late fusion guitarist Alan Holdsworth last January, and I met his one of his later drummers, Gary Novak, who's played with Chick and recorded on Alanis Morissette and lots of records. And he lives in LA, and we became friends. And so recently I started a trio with him that also features Max Girl, who's a young bass player in LA, who studied with John Patitucci. So he's kind of coming out of that kind of school of bass playing. And so if you can imagine, Gary playing with Chick Corea, the bass player being influenced by Patitucci, I'm very influenced by Chick Corea as well. So it's kind of, I'm writing music that I'm hoping is going to be a little more open, that allows us to just improvise more and play more together. And then in addition to that, I'm making a record in November that also features the same drummer, Gary, but it's also going to feature vibraphonist Warren Wolf on and Mike Moreno on guitar. And that's a duo project with my friend Mauricio Morales, who's a bass player from Mexico City. And so it's going to be that group recording 2 days in the studio and then 2 days with a string quartet as well after. So the music's already written for that. Yeah, I mean, if you know how much it costs to make a record nowadays, that as it has always cost, right? But now you don't get any return on an investment. You can imagine that like these are really labors of love because we're not expecting any return on it
Yeah.
anymore.
Yeah.
So it's kind of that's the other thing about trying to make music right now is like the outlook. I don't want to be dark about it, but it's not very, I'm not super optimistic about it.
I get it.
Yeah,
I get it. And that was the one thing I think that was talked a lot about during the pandemic. Musicians hopefully will start getting more power and control over finances and things that happen, which is why it's so important for people to support live music, because that's
right,
directly going to help you sell physical product and get people
right,
out there,
right.
So
No,
it's
you're right.
yeah.
Yeah.
So Tornado Watch, wonderful album. It's been on Neon Jazz. I'm so glad to talk to you about it. If
Yeah.
anyone needs to catch up with anything else that you've done, live shows, where's a good place for people to go to get involved?
Honestly, my Instagram at Adam Hersh Music at this point. I need to get my website redone, but that's great. Instagram works.
Speaking of modern technology, Instagram, I don't know how it happened, but that's the place for everybody. It's their marketplace, it's their website, it's like the place. So I get it.
Yeah. Yeah. I think it's just like a lot of people from my generation and maybe younger, but then there's like, TikTok is like maybe for even younger people now. But yeah, I think it has a lot to do with that probably.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Definitely goes in waves. Adam, this has been great, man. So great to catch
Yeah.
up with you again. Keep
Yeah.
making the wonderful music, man. I love spinning it.
I will. Thank you. I appreciate it.
Yes, sir. Thanks, man.